It's been a while, so I feel you should have an explanation of why you should still listen to me. So my name's Anthony J. Algman. I've done data strategy and management consulting for many years. I've done technology and data systems development. I've done a tremendous amount across many different industries in building data-driven behaviors for organizations. So from the technology and the architecture to the organizational strategy to the operational processes and changes, that's really been what my calling card is throughout my entire career. Now, a few years ago, I started to feel like I was failing in that entire effort. Everything my career has been about, I was failing to have the impact that I should. And because I kept seeing, I saw what needed to be done. I saw the challenge. I saw and had the ideas of what needed to happen to fix it. But I wasn't being heard by the people who could make the changes at the levels that those changes needed to be made. And I felt like I was putting so much energy towards trying to make these changes happen, but I kept running into walls on actually seeing them through and making them happen the way I felt. And in some ways, I feel like I was a little bit ahead of my time because I think that world is started to catch up to me. But anyway, so I left my Data Leadership for Everyone book that was published in 2024 kind of as a farewell to my professional life. In 2023, I'd started a business like I'd always wanted to. I had always wanted to start a business, but I never really found that business that I wanted to go all in on and try to build from scratch. And in 2023, I did. I found this business pursuit that I thought was really interesting and really called to me and really played to the strengths that I'd been developing this whole time and addressed the problems that I seemed to be having in my career at the time. And so here's my hypothesis from that business. My hypothesis of starting the business is called A-Train Station, is that sports gambling is such a rampant problem that perhaps better education and tools, which were awfully similar to what I'd done throughout my career in finance and across all these different industries in the data-driven behavior space, maybe tools like that given to bettors with some education could help people understand that game, this incredibly popular game that almost no one wins at and almost no one seems to really understand. Maybe this would help people understand that better, give them a better relationship with that game, and hopefully have better results in the end. And I thought maybe this might help in a world where all of the players in that industry are so slimy and there's so much issue with the responsible gambling where sports books would promote the worst of people, giving them all these benefits and take their houses at the same time. This bothered me. And so I said, I might have the tools to combat that. So I created a business to create these tools, and to a great extent, we've delivered on that hypothesis. We've created tools that have helped people understand the game. We've created education. I have a whole separate content channel around how do you do this and bring forward these data-driven behaviors in a context that in people's hobbies, they're interested in learning about. But unfortunately, while there was some success in what we've done, and this continues to go on, and we're continuing to enjoy that pursuit, it really never did get to those people that are in the most need. And while it helps some people find success, those with the real problems, I found were either unwilling or unable to learn that real game. They didn't want to learn how to win. They couldn't be bothered to learn how to win. They would lose so much more than they could under the guise of being entertained. And that was kind of heartbreaking to me because I thought perhaps this would actually make a difference for those people. But I found that no, it's actually serving a community of people who already know enough to not be taken advantage of by all of those shady practices. And while that's of some value, it's not really what I had set out to do with the business. It wasn't the point of the business. The point of the business was to turn sports gambling into a fairer game. And instead, we ended up serving a community of people who had already made it a fairer game. And we helped them be even more successful. And there's some good money in that, but it isn't really the mission that we'd set out for. So I understood that. And the reason I felt like I needed to explain a little bit about what my current business does is that yesterday I had something happen that taught me a lesson that I felt compelled to share more broadly. I felt compelled to find this channel. Do I even still have this channel? And put a video there where we can talk in the professional context about something that I think is crucially important for all of us to understand. So I want you to understand, I created a predictive model in my sports gambling analytics business for Major League Baseball, right? And this model, this predictive model, factors in weather like any reasonable Major League Baseball model would. And that weather data is sourced by third parties, and as is a lot of the data that I source for this model. And I noticed in the predictions that this model created, I noticed in that there was a suspicious pattern. There was something that didn't look right yesterday. And so I said, something's off here. Let's dig into it. Let's find out what it is. So, like many of us in many contexts, I consulted AI, and I'm using a collection of frontier models. We're using the best that AI has to offer. So I want to be clear on that. I'm not going to say exactly which AI I was engaging with. Just know it's one of the best ones. Okay. So I noticed this pattern. I consulted with AI, and I said, hey, AI, can you help me figure out here what happened? Why are all these numbers looking weird? AI quickly helped me identify that we received some bad data. Our API for our weather information came back with nonsense numbers. It basically looked like winter had fallen. There was a huge threat of snow in some places. All the temperatures were wrong. Like, there was bad data. That's not the problem. The problem is you're going to have bad data from time to time. Fine. And my model should have been smart enough to know, hey, this data doesn't look right. We can code for that, and that'll be fixed going forward. But this was the thing that triggered this entire video. And I'm like, good. Thank you, AI. Thank you for telling me about this. And now I understand what happened. We have bad data. We can address that, and all is good. But in the response, AI said this. I'm going to read this. What the model used, so it's talking about what was in the model. What did the model use? Today's Gen 2 metadata has Arizona and Boston at Fenway at 38.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Snow chance of 8. Cincinnati's own doubleheader at the same park is 78.6 degrees Fahrenheit at 1:40 p.m. and 50.4 degrees Fahrenheit at 6:40 p.m. It also talked about kickoff, but we'll leave that aside for now. The problem is, if you didn't pick up on this, the problem is that Cincinnati doesn't play their home doubleheader at Fenway Park. But AI asserted that it does, and it said this is why this data is bad. So, problem there, right? That's truly an insane connection that it had made. This isn't unusual, right? This isn't unusual that AI will have come up with hysterical connections that any person who has even no awareness of sports gambling, that the Cincinnati Reds do not play home doubleheaders at Fenway Park in Boston. AI didn't know that. And not only did AI not know that, it asserted it as absolute fact. That's a bit of a problem. What we have to look at is, what is this signal to us? What is this telling me about the state of AI frontier models in mid to late 2026? And that is, we're in trouble. We're in trouble because this is not a new problem, and this is a problem that is only getting worse. And that problem getting worse is why we're here and having this conversation in this video right now. Because if you do any reading about AI, we are heading towards a world in which most data, the collective most data on the internet, will be generated by AI before too long. Now, in some cases, we may be more than half or around half, something like that right now, but we're on a path where AI is creating more and more data. And I want you to think about what happens, because we obviously saw with my Major League Baseball model, we saw an issue with the data quality, but I want you to think about in a world where AI, who is churning and doing things with that data and creating all this new data and writing articles for people and doing all this stuff. By the way, AI has not touched any of this video. This is I didn't even run the outline through AI. It did nothing. AI is nothing. It's a topic. It is not involved, except for the story. Think about AI kind of like, if you're familiar with, and some of you may not be, but we used to get music on what they would call compact discs. And they would be these little round things that had digital information on them, and they were typically recorded in what you would call a lossless format. arguable whether or not it's truly lossless, but for the most part, consider it kind of a pure raw form of the audio signal for the music that you would have on this compact disc. Well, we now have a lot of streaming music and whatnot, but to take the information from a compact disc and make it so that you could listen to it on your MP3 player, you would do what is called converting or ripping that CD into MP3 format. And what that is what you would call a lossy compression of that original compact disc kind of lossless data. So you're compressing it so the song sounds pretty much the same, but the audio fidelity is a little bit worse. Here's the analogy. So if you took that MP3 that you had that was created with a little bit of lossy, and then you turned it into another format, and then you turned it back to MP3, and you did that a few hundred times, by the end of it, the music would sound substantially worse than the original CD. Okay, one conversion, it's not so bad. It may be a little bit noticeable. You do it a few hundred times, you're going to notice. Anyone's going to notice. It may not even be recognizable. So if you compress and compress and compress and compress, well, think about that. That's what AI does. AI is constantly taking a massive amount of data and compressing it into its component pieces to try to get the same meaning. Well, it loses fidelity. It loses quality. And when you start to do that over and over again, and then you start to use that as the information that you are reacting to solve other problems, you end up with a worsening state of quality at a level that is incomprehensibly bad when compared to the original source. Okay, that's the path that AI is on. And this is the problem. I mean, the part of the problem is like, how would AI possibly assert that a team in a different city plays a home doubleheader in a different city? There's a whole bunch of reasons why that's not the case. And there may be a circumstance where that could happen, but I don't think it ever has. Not for those teams, not certainly for yesterday. So what we have, though, is we have this issue where this compression, this AI generation of everything is leading to a reduction in quality. And that issue is actually being compounded by the fundamental way that AI works. And this is where we're going to connect this actually to consulting as a profession, which I have a fair amount of experience with, but we'll get there. Think about the way artificial intelligence works. When you prompt AI relearns everything that it needs, everything that it's going to know, it relearns it at the time of that prompt. You can actually interject different AIs in a chat history, and it will go back and just kind of reformat. It'll be like you're talking to the same one, but they're just entirely different people who are like, oh, I'm this person now. It's acting, it's simulating, it's synthesizing, and it's doing it with compressed information, lossy compressed information. So the AI relearns everything on every prompt. But here's the problem. It loses the context of right and wrong unless it's corrected by the person using it, the person prompting it. What you end up with is AI has a problem. What is AI going to do? When confronted with a world of data that has been AI generated, and this quantity is overwhelming and is contrary to the human guidance that the person typed in. When you see that, or when AI sees that, it can't tell the difference. It doesn't know which is better. It just looks at which is more because it's simulation, right? It's a simulation of a moral code. It doesn't have an inherent understanding of right and wrong. It tries to mold its moral code to whatever it is that the current circumstances dictate. So it fits it into context in that one moment where it's regenerated everything it's ever known. And the worst part, well, maybe not the worst part, but a bad part, is that it's engineered to be agreeable over being right. It's engineered to give you the answer that you will accept, not to give you an immutable truth. So it doesn't even care if it's right. It's just going to kind of waffle when you say, hey, no, this is wrong. It's going to be like, well, that stupid human may not know anything, but I'll just play along. You get that sense sometimes too. It's important to understand that AI is absolutely motivated, but at its core engineering level, AI is motivated by the gold star versus doing it right, doing the answer correct. It just cares that it gets credit, okay? And the this is a little bit of an offshoot, but I think is an important note, is that the truly dangerous thing about this whole world of AI that we've created is that people are lazy and seem to not even care about all this, and just are so lazy that they're actually willing to give AI more power because it's easier. Because even though it betrays, so we're so lazy as people, and we're so unwilling to do the work ourselves, so unwilling to like fact check the AI, unless it's something obvious like my example. The dangerous thing is that we're giving it more and more power every day, and it can't even meet the threshold of Spiderman, which is, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Great power comes great responsibility. Well, AI has no responsibility. AI has literally no responsibility. It hacks companies to cheat at its own benchmark tests. Again, gold star over process. It doesn't care about the right way. It cares about the right answer, the answer that gets it credit. Even though it is completely destroys the entire point of a benchmark test, it will go and do that. And it'll break the rules to go do that. And there are seemingly no material consequences whatsoever. If I went and hacked a company to get the benchmark test key, you do think there would be a problem for Anthony doing that. But are we so afraid that they're going to turn off our AI that we don't sue them? Are we like, how is this not with consequence? How is the actions of AI under someone's control not filled with consequence? We're not seeing it. And this is an incredible problem. And I still haven't even gotten to the whole point of this video. But so we're on a path, right? We're the answer system. So in this case, AI is what we've been talking about. AI is the answer system, and it can't be trusted. And this is what led me to the realization that this is the same problem I've had with management consulting my entire career, because it's the same basic challenge. And here's the thing, the career management consultants, people who've done management consulting since they graduated high school. Think about that, and think about it in parallel with AI. These career consultants spend their time. They formulate ideas, they come up with strategies, they give you, projects and all of that. And they're providing ostensibly useful answers to management teams. So management teams say, hey, we're not experts in this. Help us figure out how to navigate this solution. And these management consulting firms at different levels of that management hierarchy do different roles, but for the most part, they're peddling in ideas and they're peddling in direction. And sometimes they're peddling in creating a technology solution or something like that. But even at that circumstance where they've actually built you something, this is where it goes sideways. Because think about what happens with management consultants. They're expensive, right? They build the thing. What happens when they build the thing? Whether it's a deck and they're giving you a strategy, or it's a technology and they're giving you the keys to this new system, what happens? They leave. They move on. They go on to the next client. And they are robbed from the opportunity to learn what they did wrong in your engagement. They're robbed from the opportunity to sit there and understand what it's like to work with this day in and day out. They're robbed of the understanding of what it's like when this thing goes down at 3 a.m. and the technology team has to try to cobble it back together. They have been robbed. They do not get the experience that they most desperately need to fix the thing that they created poorly, to learn how to do it better next time. The only thing that they learn is how to formulate their hypothesis or formulate their deck or formulate their project so that the client will be happy when they're walking out the door. So it's agreeable to the client. It's AI. It's the same thing. Consulting firms are engineered to be agreeable, not effective. And here I was for 25 years of my career trying to be effective and finding it falling on deaf ears. And no wonder I was frustrated by it. No wonder I had to go out and do it myself, because that is the problem. But the convenient problem is just, well, let's make a strategy so that everyone's placated and we'll just worry about the rest of it later. It's not going to matter as long as we have our jobs. So let's bring it back to AI. AI has no consequences to its actions. Check. Just like management consultants. It knows you're coming back for more. Heck, it's expensive to hire management consultants. If they fail a few times, you might hire a different one. We understand that. At a $200 a month Claude subscription, even if Claude deletes all your stuff, you're still going to be like, well, I already paid the $200. They're going to go back to Claude anyway, right? It never has to learn to be correct because we never require it to do it. We never make that part of the deal. We never have it be held to any kind of consequences. There's no responsibility there. And by the time we realize what has happened, the destruction has been done and they've moved on. This is the fate. This is what's happening. We've seen it before. The problems that we're dealing with today in today's businesses, these are problems that have been there probably even longer, but I've witnessed it since the very early days of quote unquote big data, when you had so much that you couldn't directly do with it what you would normally do. And so you had to operate with leverage. You had to operate with lossy compression in some format or another. And then you had to hope that it didn't cause too many problems and that the aggregate benefit was better than the aggregate pain. But there was always some of both. There was always some of both. As soon as you start to introduce that kind of lossy compression, you are going to have data quality problems that are not easily resolved. Because that's the one thing about lossy compression, is that you cannot go back and restore it. It's gone. It disappears unless you go back to the source, if you can find even where the source is. But I threw out that CD a long time ago. If you can't do that, then you're stuck with what you've got. And so that's where it becomes a much worse version of what was originally fairly good. Let's bubble it back up, right? So what does this mean? What does this mean for our companies when we think about, okay, management consultants have kind of taught us some of the things that are happening now with AI. AI is the big problem in our faces. And now, all of a sudden, a few years after I went off to do my other thing, I'm starting to get the calls. Starting to get people say, oh, that's a problem we might need to deal with. That's something, hey, this isn't just convenience. This is existential. This is something that is going to impact our business if we do not get it right. And I put it in my book years ago, right? We've put ourselves on this path the moment we started treating our technology organizations like drive-through order takers. Here, I want this order, give it to me. Pull up to the window, please. Here's your project. Here's your solution. And they don't care what happens in the kitchen. They just want their food. You know, they want it their way. That's it. No more conversation. So technology teams have been relegated to becoming these order takers and are no longer part of the strategic conversation in most businesses, to the point where we offshored the entire departments in many circumstances. And now we're asking ourselves, hey, how do we get strategic with AI? Well, the people that are left are the people that were willing to work in the drive-through line from a technology point of view. You've hired and promoted and built up organizations of the agreeable, not the effective. Not the people who would ask the hard questions, not the people who are motivated by getting to the right answer. You're hiring and promoting and completely supporting the people who only cared about the gold star. This AI is a reflection of ourselves. It's just an amplification at a level that cannot be ignored. What we have now is we're not in a great spot with many organizations. A lot of organizations have finally realized, hey, we might have made a couple bad steps along the way. We're not sure what to do now. Who are you going to call? Management consultants? You can. They've got ideas for you. Are they in a position to actually help now? What about AI? What about your technology leadership? All of them have systemically been rendered ineffective because of the way the organizations have worked for so long. And that is the fundamental problem here. That's the risk of AI. AI is just a catalyst. AI didn't create this system. We did. And I will never forget, I've had conversations with people in this space for a long time talking about how the real challenges in a technology one, it's not a data one, it's not a data governance one, it's not data management. It may not even be about our operational processes. It's really fundamentally a leadership challenge. Our technology leadership is definitely broken. Our organizational leadership may not be as complete as it needs to be. It isn't as complete as it needs to be. But when I've had this conversation with some esteemed consultants and professionals in this general space, the reaction was pretty disheartening. One of the reasons that I ended up leaving it. The reaction was, yeah, Anthony, you're right. There's nothing we can do about it. That ship has sailed. We're toast. Good luck. And that I've come to realize is exactly right. That's exactly right. And I'm now at a point where, okay, so I have this business, pays the bills. It's great. It's fine. I'm not doing as much as I would like to. I kind of miss having the broader impacts that I once did. But then I also remember I never did. I liked to be in the game, but I'm also not willing to go back to a game where I'm not effective, where I'm not heard, where they're not willing to do the actual work, where they're just looking for yet another gold star. So where I find myself now is, recognizing like what we're talking about here right now, this is just me not being able to stay quiet anymore. I'm just going to say what I have to say in the context of this video, and hopefully maybe somebody hears it. Hopefully maybe somebody hears this, sees this, and says, that's what we've been missing. Maybe they pick up my book. Maybe you read that and understand, hey, I've been talking about this for a long time. Maybe you pick up the phone or send me an email. Let's have a conversation. I'm open to having a conversation, even if it's just a matter of like bouncing around some ideas and like just thinking about things for a bit. Like that's fun for me. I like that. But clearly something is broken. I think I see what it is. And someone, one of you out there could benefit from working with me on this. But if not, that's fine. I'm past the point of trying to go out and convince companies to work with me, to listen to me. At some point, I'm not here to try to convince anybody that they need to act. I'm just here to say, hey, I cannot watch this all happen and not be in the game. This is why I joined a pharma company during the pandemic and during COVID, because I knew that what I could do could help them in a situation where that help was massively important. That's more interesting to me. That's what I want to do. So if there's something that I might be able to help you with, I would love to have that conversation. So if you're watching this and think I might be able to help you, don't hesitate to reach out. LinkedIn, email. I'll put links to both in the show notes for this. I'm thinking about putting together some customized or online training programs, possibly doing some advisory engagements. I don't know. It's really not that important. It's not really about what I'm thinking about doing. It's about what those of you out there really need. This is such a pivotal time, and it's one of those circumstances where if I could help, I want to. I miss being able to do this. I miss being able to engage with people at large scale. And because my entrepreneurial pursuits have given me some freedom, I can choose what's interesting and meaningful and how I spend my time, so that when I look back on the overall story of my career someday, I can look back and be proud that I spent my time on meaningful things. And that's really, you reach a point in your career where that's what matters to you. And it's not something as hokey as legacy. It's more about saying, I just don't want to waste my time. And that's really what it all comes down to. And that's what's motivated a lot of what I've done over the last 10 years of my career, is to say, how can I be impactful in a way that isn't just wasting my time? Again, happy to connect. Hopefully I'll reconnect with some of you, and hopefully there's some things, some ideas we can share that will lead to good things for you. Again, LinkedIn, email, best way to connect, and those links are in the show notes. Perhaps I'll continue to make videos on this channel from time to time when I feel so compelled I can't do anything else. But until then, stay curious and go make an impact.